All right, it's 4 o'clock. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. If I could ask Sherry Patillo to lead us in our invocation, please.
Yes,
Okay.
Lord, thank you.
Let's pray. Gracious and merciful God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for being able to come here together. And we thank you for the opportunity to serve our city that we love. We ask for your wisdom during this time. And God, we also pray that our discussion and our decisions would be pleasing to you. God, we also ask for the blessing on our city for your glory.
Yes.
In Christ Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen.
All right, item number 1 is the Visitors and Citizens Forum. Any citizen with business not scheduled on the agenda may speak to the Economic Improvement Corporation. No deliberation or action can be taken on these items because the Open Meetings Act requires an item be posted on an agenda 72 hours before the meeting. Visitors are asked to limit their presentation to 3 minutes. Do I have any visitors today that would like to speak? All right, if none, then let's move on to item number 2, which is approval of minutes of the March 19th, 2018 meeting and the April 16th, 2018 meeting. If you'll recall, we didn't have minutes in our last meeting to approve. Those are in your packet, and I'll take a motion to approve when you're ready.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes as written.
Motion to
Yep.
approve both.
And I,
Yeah.
yes, I second. Yeah.
We have a motion and a second to approve both of the sets of minutes. Any discussion or changes? All those in favor, raise your right hand. And that motion passes unanimously. Item number 3, which is monthly reports. Welcome.
Hello.
Hi, Amy.
Hi, Amy.
Good afternoon. We're going to go over the financial report to start, and if you'll turn to page 13 in your packet, I'm going to just hit some of the highlights on the financial statements for the month. So the first thing we have here, we have 2 different funds, the Sales Tax Improvement Fund and the Projects Fund. I'm going to start with the Sales Tax Improvement Fund. We started with a cash balance of about $1.9 million, and we received sales tax of almost $242,000. I wanted to give you a couple of notes about that. So sales tax was up 0.4% compared to fiscal year 17. So not much, especially because we had budgeted a 3.6% increase. But on the good news side, we have already received our May sales tax, and in May our sales tax is up just over 5% compared to the prior year. So that's the best we've seen this fiscal year, and that May sales tax is for purchases that happened in March. So we did have a lot of activity, spring break and sports complex, that kind of thing. It looks like we're seeing some good news there. So more to come on that next month, but we did see increases in all categories, retail, food service, manufacturing, across the board. We saw increases in May. But for this month of April that we're looking at here, it was still pretty flat. And given that we've been flat year to date through April, we are still expecting a shortfall for the year compared to what we had budgeted. Interest income, on the other hand, we're doing better than budget on our interest income because of the period of rising interest rates that we're in right now. As we'll get to a little bit later, and as y'all know, we have most of our money invested in a government pool account called Tex Pool. And it's basically like a money market, and it's completely liquid. And as of today, the Tex Pool rate is 2.02%. So I can actually talk in terms that aren't just basis points, but 2.02%. So that's always good. So anyway, revenues of $250,000. And then on the expenditure side, we have the usual administrative services fee. We also had a little bit of legal services there. And then we have some transfers. And you'll probably remember, but just as a refresher, the way that we move money through is the money comes into the Sales Tax Improvement Fund, and then as it gets allocated to projects, we move it over to the Projects Fund. And then from the project fund, it's actually dispersed to the individual project. So either back to one of the city capital projects funds, or, you know, we've dispersed directly to James Avery, or, you know, different things like that in the past. So this, the top numbers that you're seeing here, we're moving money from the sales tax improvement fund to the project fund. And we're trying to do some kind of finishing out of the funding commitments on multiple projects. So on the tennis center, that completes the funding of the tennis center. Downtown streetscape, that completes the committed funding there. Reuse distribution, that completes the committed funding there. The transfer out for housing, that's a quarterly transfer. Since we haven't officially committed it to a particular project, we just continued with the usual quarterly transfer there. And then the debt service is just the usual debt service. So that gets us to an ending cash balance of $757,000. Moving down to the projects fund, we started with a balance of almost $3.5 million. And then you can see the revenues coming in that are the same as the transfers going out from above. And then on the expenditure side, this is where we're actually moving that committed funding to the general fund capital projects or water sewer capital projects fund. So at the end of April, we've now completed our funding for the tennis center, the downtown streetscape, and the reuse distribution lines. And that takes the cash balance down to the $2.3 million. Moving on to page 14, this is basically the same kind of information. It just gives you a little bit more data on year-to-date, actual, and budget, that kind of thing. But there's nothing new on this other than to point out that that you've expended all of your budget for project commitments, with the exception of the housing that we're doing on a quarterly basis. And then we had in the original budget $200,000 for Legion lift station debt service, and it looks like we're going a little bit different direction there that that EAA has been talking to y'all about. So those are the main points of note there. If you'll go to the third page, there's just some additional analysis about the sales tax revenue, which we've discussed. The middle part of the page shows where your cash is invested, and it's primarily in that EIC tax pool as discussed. And then the last two boxes just show some additional information on the projects that EIC is funding. In that committed project funding status summary, you can see over there that far right-hand column indicates what's left in the EIC projects fund, and so that's basically what's kind of left as not officially committed or transferred to anything yet. Let's see. I think those are the main highlights. I think EA is going to give you a project update in just a minute on the status of specific projects. But does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I have one.
Yes, sir.
Did we do an amendment or something to change the budget for the sales tax? Because the budgeted amount for sales tax is different than it was last month. The annual budget. It's dropped by about $100,000.
I will take a look at that and
Okay.
let you know.
Okay.
We have not done a budget amendment,
Okay.
so I'll look at that and see. And you're talking about just the annual budget for sales tax?
Yeah.
Okay.
Last month it was like almost 3.5 million. Right now it's sitting at a little less than 3.4.
Okay, I will take a look at that and get back to you. But no, we have not done any
Okay.
budget amendments. Anything else?
Any questions?
All right, thank you.
Amy. All right, item 3B is the projects update. EA, I guess you'll be presenting those.
Yes, sir. Okay, we've got 3 project updates for you. River Trail, we're making great progress along that path. We are starting to pour concrete. I don't have an exact linear feet for you that we've accomplished thus far, but they've got their technique down and they are pushing forward. And luckily, we've had pretty good weather, so they're making really good progress down there. We're still on track to be up and running in that kind of August, September timeframe. So making good progress. Reuse distribution lines, we're pretty much all in. We've, all 3 of the new vaults have been installed as of last week. I drove by the 534 bridge today and I saw they had equipment out there, so they are in the process of installing the lines that were going across the river. So that was pretty much the last segment of installation that was going to be required for that. So we're just about wrapped up with the distribution lines. Tennis Center improvements, we do have an item on the City Council agenda for tomorrow for them to authorize us to negotiate with the most qualified applicant that we have received. We did get a great pool. We had about 6 firms, I believe, that ended up submitting qualifications for the Tennis Center improvement project. Oh, I'm sorry, that's for aquatics, but also a good update for you guys. We probably need to include that one in here. Tennis Center improvements, we are making good progress on that one as well. We've gotten the initial, they've taken the initial feedback that we had from the open houses that we held about a month ago, and they are working those into kind of a final plan to move forward with construction documents. So they're going back and doing a little bit more homework on taking the feedback that the public provided, but we're continuing to progress on that, hoping to have construction documents ready to go so we can go out to bid again in that August, September timeframe. So we'll get aquatics on here for you guys for next month. That's all I have, sir.
All right, very good. Any questions?
I did have a question about the River Trail. Is there going to be some kind of an arrangement with DDIRT for parking?
Yes,
Great.
council entered into an agreement with them a number of months ago before we started construction. Essentially, that will be a trailhead site, similar to the relationship that the city has with the Nature Center. So it will have a shared parking arrangement. We're doing some site improvements for them as well.
Great.
So definitely a win-win for the community.
That's great.
Yeah.
Very good. Any other questions? Thank you, EA.
Thank you.
On to item on the agenda 4A, project funding agreement between the City of Kerrville, Texas Economic Improvement Corporation and the City of Kerrville, Texas for the upsizing of the Legion Lift Station. I believe this is a public hearing as well.
Yes, sir. So you want to open the public hearing by time?
So it is 4:12. We'll open the public hearing now.
Go ahead and provide a presentation for you.
Please.
Okay. So we came to you guys at your last meeting, and you had directed us to go ahead and move forward with setting a public hearing date and presenting a funding agreement with you, which City Attorney Mike Hayes has drafted over the course of the last month. No details have changed since we presented this to you last month. Essentially, this is a project to expand the Legion Lift Station, which services most of the eastern and southeastern portion of the Kerrville community. It is needed most essentially for new development. This is a increase in the capacity of the, not the existing lift station. Will actually replace that lift station entirely because it is aged, but increase it by more than 50% within the capacity that it has there. Overall, the project is anticipated at this point, we're at about 60% design. It is anticipated to be about $9.85 million. As you recall, as we went through the budget process, we were originally contemplating about a $5 million ask to the EIC, but debt financed over 20 years. And so, as Amy had illustrated earlier, there was $200,000 that was allocated this year for a partial payment towards that debt funding, assuming we move through a funding agreement, and then it would be subsequent $400,000 payments in the out years. We have since changed that strategy, and the current funding agreement is drafted for a total $2 million of EIC funded support for this in two $1 million payments across the next 2 fiscal years. So it has no fiscal year, no impact to the EIC's current fiscal year budget, but we would move that into the budget for the next 2 upcoming years. Again, this is a major infrastructure project that but for this project moving forward, we will not be able to accomplish economic development within that large quadrant of the city. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
How firm has it been, the $7.85 million? I know at the last time we discussed this, that was kind of like up in the air as to how much we would be able to borrow from them, and the $2 million commitment by EIC was kind of like the difference between the cost and the loan. So where are we on that?
It is. So we're anticipating a total project of $9.85 million. We are in the application process with the Texas Water Development Board based off of the input from the EIC at this and this moving forward. We will revise that application with them.
Okay, so if we're asking actually a specific amount we're asking for as opposed to some percentage of the project?
Yes, that's correct. We're
Okay.
asking for the, essentially what we've done.
I
at
didn't
this
know how
point.
they funded.
Yes,
how
sir.
they calculated.
Yeah, you can revise the application as you move forward.
But also to clarify something that he just said, this draft agreement shows the 2 million from EIC going out first, right?
Yes, that's correct.
So we're not really the gap financing, we're the front financing.
That's
and-
right. That's
okay.
correct. Yeah, we will reduce the Texas Water Development Board loan financing based off the EIC's
Right.
funding agreement. That's correct.
And then I had a question. The draft agreement talks about an Exhibit A with cost itemization specified, but there wasn't an Exhibit A included that I didn't see it.
Yeah, we apologize. It was similar to what was presented to council a number of weeks ago when we went to the
Okay.
Texas Water Development Board. But, essentially it's about, there's roughly $8 million in construction costs, engineering, and some of the other
It was the
auxiliary
full-on
pieces.
project cost, right?
Full-on
Yeah.
project estimate right now is right at
Okay.
9.85.
Okay. Did it include the, because at council, we talked about this development board loan somehow maybe including I always mess up the initials, TTHM, is that the right initials?
No, this is completely
It's
separate.
not gonna have that in the itemization,
Yeah,
okay.
this is a completely separate project from
Okay.
that. The city has an application for that with the Texas Water Development Board, but they're completely separate
Okay.
applications and actually separate funds within what we're applying. One is a Clean Water Act and one is a different funding.
Okay, and where is the proposed site for it's talking about putting it on a different site, where is that?
It is on current city-owned property at the northeast corner of 534 and 27. So it's just behind the car wash.
Behind it or moving up 534, just because I'm curious?
Moving up 534.
Okay, all right.
Yes, sir.
I have a did you have a question? I'm just curious to know how the city got into this situation. In 2015, in the budget letter that the ex-city manager wrote, he indicated that we had ongoing projects of 19 million in water sewer projects already funded, scheduled to be completed by fiscal year 2018, will address major system repairs and add capacity to meet the city's needs over the next 15 to 20 years. So I'm not making a comment for or against the project. I'm trying to figure out how the city got in this situation where they didn't I understand it's a maintenance as well as expansion of this lift station. But when did it come to, this didn't just happen. It had to have been seen, because I remember listening to previous city council meetings over the last few years about hearing about the Legion lift station. So my question is there anything in the future that can be done, that council can do to set aside funds for future needs, escrow monies for maintenance and for expansion in lieu of coming to the EIC? In other words, like, do we have, after this project, can you look, say, the next 5 to 10 years and say with any certainty, this is all we're going to need? Or if you need more things, then people need to know about it so they can be planned. How do you think we got here to begin with? And I know you weren't here back then.
That's right.
But is there a better way to do this in the future, is what I'm asking.
This was a project that was identified in the 2012 water and wastewater, this one specific to the wastewater master plan. We are embarking right now as a priority coming out of the Kerrville 2050 plan on doing, one of the action items is to update that plan. So over the course of the next 2 years, we will be taking subsequent, a new revision to the water master plan as well as the wastewater master plan. So it absolutely will identify projects over that next 5 to 10 year time span.
Well, what happened between 2012 when it was identified and 2015 when it was apparently it indicated that these projects that we needed were funded? What happened? Where did the money go? Does
Okay.
anyone know?
Yeah, well, one thing, again, I wasn't here, but, I do know that, we have had significant construction cost increases, as you've seen, oil and gas changes across the state of Texas. We've seen recent cost increases, just even over the last 9 months related to hurricane-related activity. So we have had cost increases just generally in construction. That has, changed the dynamics as far as funding on many of these larger projects.
And let me take a shot at answering it. Basically, the 3 years that he's talking about, they're gone, they're past, we can't fix them. But Mr. McDaniel worked on a long-term budget, if you will, of these projects. It's pretty well lined out. It includes a lot of things that we haven't thought about and some that we have. And so to answer the real question, which is how are we preventing it, the long-term planning is in place to where it's being budgeted for. Some of it's going to involve general obligation loans, but I don't recall seeing a whole bunch coming to EIC for what amounts to infrastructure. So it's being taken care of. It's a bag of crap that was dropped in somebody's lap, and we're here to fix it. Okay, so sorry for that French. Is that translated well? Anyways.
All right. Any other questions?
So just real quickly go through the time frame here.
Okay.
Again, we are in design. We should be wrapping that up really this month. We've already gone through pre-application with Texas Water Development Board and submitted many parts of that loan application. We're hoping to hear back from them essentially in the mid-summer time frame, and then enter into bid phase around November with construction ensuing across the 2019 calendar year. Happy to answer any other questions you may have.
So it's looking to be done, like, start to finish in a year?
With construction, yes,
Yeah,
sir.
that's what I mean, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's a big project, but
Yeah.
it's
Well, I mean,
priority.
it seems shorter than I thought,
Yeah,
that's all.
well, we hope it goes even
Okay.
shorter, but.
Yeah.
Is the design phase included in the loan, or is that just the engineering design phase, is that included in the loan from Texas Water Development Board?
Yes, on this project it is.
Other questions?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you
Thank
for the
you.
presentation. All right, I don't have anyone in the visitors that has submitted any questions. So my assumption is we don't have any questions from the visitors. Would that be correct? I'm getting a no there, so we will close the public hearing. It is 4:22. Back into our regular meeting. So you have a funding agreement, a copy of a funding agreement, and well, I didn't get a copy of the actual funding agreement, but I do have the summary statement. Or did I get a copy?
Yeah,
It's in there.
Yeah, it's at the very back, isn't it? All right, because I do remember reading part of that. So if our board so chooses, we can move forward with that funding agreement, just need to approve it.
I would I would ask that we move on to the 5A and come back to this in executive session if we can.
Okay, so you would
I'd
move
make
to
that
move it
motion.
to
I'd like to
executive
reorder it. I mean, we've got it listed as an executive session 6A. So
Okay.
I would do that there.
All right. So we'll just discuss that one in executive session. All right. Consideration and possible action 5A for designation of the June EIC meeting as the board's annual meeting. Do I have a motion to that effect?
I so move.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All right, that motion passes unanimously. Item number 6 is our executive session. We do have 2 things to discuss in that executive session. So I would entertain a motion to move into executive session.
I'll make a motion that we move into executive session under, which one is it going to be for the Legion thing? Is it 5.5? Okay, 551-087. I get to pick one? Okay.
Or both.
And 6B under 551-087.
We have a motion to move those two items to executive and a second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Any opposed? All right, so
I did.
we're moving into executive session. It's 4:25. Everyone is here, so it is 5:10. We'll bring the meeting back to order and come out of executive session. There's a line I'm supposed to read. Where is it? All I can say is that no action is being taken. No action was taken in executive session. All right. Any action items from executive session we want to discuss here?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion. I move that the staff prepare a funding agreement based on the discussions we had in executive session and also set a public hearing for the June meeting.
We have a motion.
Related to the Collette project. Thank you.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it. Vote.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed? No opposition. That is approved unanimously. All right, I don't see anything else on the agenda.
Just if you all want to take action on 4A.
We
Oh.
do.
We do want to take action on item number 4A. My bad. That would require a motion. 4A being the funding agreement between the City of Kerrville Economic Improvement Corporation and the City of Kerrville, Texas for the upsizing of the Legion lift station.
Go ahead. I move we approve the funding agreement as written.
Motion and a second for approval. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. None opposed. It's unanimous. So that concludes the agenda for today. Any announcements? All right. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
You move that we adjourn. You second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. This meeting is adjourned at 5:12.